Nice looking Tuesday. Going to be shaking out with high temps back to near 80 degrees. Right now we're at 68. Clear conditions locally in Grand Rapids and clear for the majority of our viewing area at this point. Angeline made it into the upper 70s to around 80 degrees. 80, in fact, got to briefly in Grand Rapids today. 81 Kalamazoo, similar Battle Creek. The lakeshore a little bit cooler. Yeah, we had these north-northwest winds at about 10 to 20, gusting to 25, perhaps even 30 at times. And the waves were picked up just a bit. If you live along the lakeshore, if you're near the water, waves about 3 to 4 to 5 feet today. A similar type of a situation shaking out for tomorrow as well. Pretty warm, though, across the country. Look at this, 90s for a lot of real estate. But as I've been mentioning the last couple of days, the pattern that we've had the last, say, 7 to 10 days has been for the heat to move really from west to east and come plowing in here. Not the case anymore because there is this northerly flow pattern in the Great Lakes, so it's blocking and presenting a barrier to the heat, which means that we really don't have anything tremendously warm in the 7-day, though I do have to say there is a little bit of a kind of a backing off of that quote-unquote barrier Thursday and Friday, so we'll get warmer at that time, but then right back down into this somewhat type of a cooler pattern for the middle of June thereafter. Current temps on the board right now. Current temps locally in West Michigan. Angeline 68 at last check, GR 69, Ionia. Similar Kalamazoo, a little bit cooler where the temps were cooler for highs this afternoon along the lakeshore. Winds have come down. That was the expectation. They'll be light in the overnight right on through tomorrow morning, then start to pick up a little bit again by mid to late morning and afternoon. Dew points in the upper 40s to lower 50s. So even though we did have those showers and thunder showers earlier, they were not accompanied by anything real humid out there, just tapping into whatever moisture there was in the atmosphere to give us those downpours for a few of us. But have been shrinking up recently down to the point where we don't even have a cloud in the sky here at Fox 17. And that comes after, again, a couple heavier downpours earlier this evening. Go to 80 degrees tomorrow afternoon. I've actually boosted that by a degree from the earlier shows. We got to 80 today. It's a similar atmosphere tomorrow, so can't go anything lower than 80 tomorrow. Does warm up Thursday and Friday, Angeline. We'll take a look at that. And I've been mentioning about a better chance for rain perhaps later this week. Give you the timetable on it, weekend forecast as well in just a few.
All right, thanks, Anthony. A controversial Civil War statue will stay in its place following a vote this evening by Allendale Township leaders. Fox 17's Marisa Overly is live with a look at that debate. Marisa?
Yeah, Angeline, as you can imagine, that decision brought on a lot of emotion among the people in attendance at tonight's meeting. Some saying it's a great day for Allendale and others calling it a shameful one. Now, township trustees met tonight to vote on a recommendation brought forth last month by an advisory committee, which suggested removing and replacing the current Civil War statue, which features a Confederate soldier and a Union soldier standing side by side with a slave child at their feet, with another statue of 3 Union soldiers from West Michigan. Now, as discussions began, a number of trustees spoke against it, listing individual conversations with community members and not wanting to rewrite history as the reasons why. A motion to instead move the statue to a nearby museum, seen as a compromise to please all of the opinions involved, where its full history and the artist's intent could be put into context, was proposed but ultimately failed. Thereafter, a trustee introduced another motion to keep the statue as is and repair the damage done to it over the past year. That ended up passing in a 5-2 vote.
I'm glad that you have stuck to your guns, because just because you don't like something doesn't mean everybody has to change for you. The committee was only there to make recommendations, and you took some of their recommendations.
I'm truly, truly disappointed. I just can't even believe that the 5 of you cannot see beyond your own white skin to understand how hurtful that statue being there is to certain people in this community.
Now, just circling back to those original recommendations brought forth by that advisory committee last month, not only did they suggest removing and replacing the Civil War statue, but they also said, why not add to the Garden of Honor, putting in some additional wars like the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. The trustees, did discuss that briefly today, but ultimately decided not to move forward with anything at this time. They said that they will consider bringing it up at a future date. So as of now, once again, the statute will stay as is. Reporting live in Allendale, Marisa Oberly, Fox 17 News.
All right, Marisa, thank you. 2 women are behind bars and a Kent County deputy injured after a wild chase over the weekend that spanned from Montcalm to Kent County. And the woman who police say was driving the RV was formally charged today in court. Michigan State Police say they got a call Saturday about Linda Mankel driving an RV erratically in the area of M46 and M91. Stop sticks and a pit maneuver eventually put an end to the low-speed pursuit. Today she made her first court appearance where she faces 10 charges. Many of them are felonies.
And my understanding of what occurred based on the charges in front of me, which endangered the lives of, potentially endangered the lives of both police officers and members of the community.
Charges here are quite serious, including driving the wrong way down a US 131 into oncoming traffic. People were injured, and one officer was nearly run over.
Mankel could be charged as a habitual offender, which would mean she could face the possibility of life in prison. As for the deputy injured, we're told she is recovering well and is expected to be okay. Time for something good. West Michigan is now home to a second cafe, which is serving up coffee with a purpose. Maggie's Bee Cafe opened today in Hudsonville on 28th Street. What makes this coffee shop different is that they employ people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Maggie's mother says the unemployment rate for people with disabilities ranges between 70 and 80%. So she wanted to help to change that.
They're very aware of what the other people, the general population, is doing, and they want the same purpose. They have the same goals.
Coffee bonds people together. You know, people have it in the morning, they'll sit around, they'll have their conversation, talk about what they're going to be doing for that day. I think it's just something that brings people together.
This is the second of its kind in our area. Brody's Bee Cafe opened in Ada 2 years ago, but they are operated by different owners. The cafe will serve various coffee drinks, tea, smoothies, and baked goods. The store will also serve some Chick-fil-A items on select days. Well, there's a new program that's helping Michigan adults complete their college degrees free of charge.
So it's just like a win-win opportunity, not only for our business community, but also as individuals seek to, continue their education and fulfill their dreams.
And tuition isn't the only hurdle it's helping with. A look at Michigan RECONNECT and how it's helping people start a new chapter in life. Plus, Governor Whitmer announcing a major new proposal for Michigan childcare, how much it could provide, and who might benefit from this program.
It's going to be a lot to try to ease back into like a very structured routine.
After more than a year, the return to normal can be a cause of anxiety and stress. A look at what to consider as we transition back, that's still to come. A program to get adults back in the classroom free of charge is off to a roaring start. Our Aaron Parsegian has a look at the numbers and why it could be a game changer for those enrolled and the business community.
We were able to launch the RECONNECT program, and to date, we've seen over 70,000 folks apply.
70,000 Michiganders, a sold-out Ford Field's worth of people, are taking advantage of a new program and getting free tuition at their local community college.
It was a bipartisan effort to get the RECONNECT legislation achieved last year.
Carrie Ebersol Singh is the director of Michigan 60 by 30, a statewide push to ensure 60% of Michiganders have a skills certificate or post-secondary degree by 2030. That would be an 11% increase from where we stand now.
There are in-demand or high-demand jobs here in the state that we don't have the workforce we need to fill those jobs. So it's just like a win-win opportunity, not only for our business community, but also as individuals seek to, continue their education and fulfill their dreams.
And research shows there's a big benefit. 70% of jobs in Michigan require some form of post-secondary education. And those with 2-year degrees on average earn an additional $7,500 per year. Often, it's the cost keeping adults from going back to get their degree.
This was a blessing, believe me.
61-year-old Wilson Price is one of the 70,000 Michiganders taking part in the program.
I was a machinist, and I was working one day, and I got injured at work, and I lost my eyesight. So since then, been having trouble finding jobs and different things like that.
Price is just 8 credits short from getting an associate's in management. Thanks to the RECONNECT program, he's going back to Muskegon Community College.
I'm just thankful that I can finally, start seeing a light, because I've been going through so much these last 2 years, and now I can see a light now.
Now, there are some kinks in the fledgling program that will need to be fixed. Among them, cost is not the only thing holding people back.
There's other barriers folks face in achieving those degrees. So we are working towards helping support these students in other wraparound services.
Services like childcare or SNAP benefits to start.
At the end of the day, we want to see folks complete these degrees and certificates.
For Price, that graduation line is a lease on a new chapter of his life, one he's excited to tell others about.
It's never too late to get an education. Look at me, I'm 61.
For Fox 17 News, I'm Aaron Parsegian.
Definitely sounds like an interesting opportunity for some people. Now, the Michigan RECONNECT program is open to any Michigan resident over 25 years old who has yet to complete a college degree. If you are younger, another state program called Futures for Frontliners gives free tuition to frontline workers who continued working during the pandemic. For more information on how to apply to either program, you can head to fox17online.com. Governor Whitmer proposing major investments to Michigan's child care. The plan would use $1.4 billion of federal money to expand access to child care and make it more affordable for families. In fact, Whitmer says the plan would make low or no-cost child care available to about 150,000 more children. To reach that mark, the governor is proposing an increase in income eligibility from 150% to 200% of the federal poverty level for a family of 4. Now, to put that into perspective, that's about $15,000 more per year that eligible families could receive. Income eligibility would then increase to 160% annually after September of 2023. Other highlights of the plan include quarterly stipends for child care professionals, grant funding for new and expanding sites, as well as raising child care subsidy rates by 20%, among a few other things.
Our recovery depends on access to quality, affordable child care. Our state's economic recovery depends on us getting this right.
The $1.4 billion plan would be funded by 2 rounds of federal stimulus, and that amount is 6 times more than what Michigan currently receives. The pandemic certainly brought mental health challenges, and now as it winds down, the prospect of reopening brings similar challenges of its own.
Returning to the office, a lot of people are struggling with this idea of like, oh my gosh, I have to be back on.
Coming up, we talk to a therapist about post-COVID mental health and how to cope as we return to normal.
Did you experience any rainfall out there today? If you live along the lakeshore, you're wondering what we've been talking about all day because no, you didn't get anything. But here inland, some showers. This is actually through Friday. I've got a little wave of moisture to track later this week. We'll do just that. Main weather segment coming up in just a bit.
Mental health challenges have been at the forefront of the pandemic, and as states like Michigan reopen, there are new mental health issues emerging. Our Janice Allen spoke to a therapist from Pine Rest about what some of those challenges are post-COVID and how you can cope if you're struggling.
It's going to be a lot to try to ease back into like a very structured routine.
Whether it was a jam-packed social calendar or a long morning commute, chances are your life now probably looks very different than before the pandemic. But as vaccination rates climb and COVID cases go down, the return to normal is back in sight, and the thought isn't appealing to everyone.
Over 40 million Americans deal with anxiety, right? And so there was anxiety already existing. Then the pandemic happened. We all kind of shifted and adjusted our lives to thrive during the pandemic.
Mental health struggles from the pandemic giving way to new anxiety and stress about going back to what life was like before.
Returning to the office, a lot of people are struggling with this idea of like, oh my gosh, I have to be back on. Right.
Whether it's returning to work in person.
There's like a level when you're back at home where you're like, okay, I can dress kind of comfy and I don't have the water cooler chit chat. It's not like I need to be on 24/7, and what does that mean for me?
Stress over gaining a few pandemic pounds.
Just a bit of anxiety regarding like showing yourself after pandemic life and what do I look like going back out into the world, working or dating.
Or trauma from living through a pandemic.
It kind of reminds me of the situation with 9/11, right? Like it affects everyone so differently depending on how connected you are to either someone who had it, or if you had it, or a family member passed, or if you are a medical provider during the pandemic.
So what can you do now to prepare as Michigan eyes the complete reopening in just a few weeks?
I think something that's important that I will tell my patients is to treat going back into the office just the same way you would if your child was going off to their first day of school. Really getting used to how it feels will take down the fear of like initially stepping foot back all in the door and everyone's overwhelming you and asking questions, how you been and are you vaccinated? So slowly putting your foot out there, I think will be helpful.
If it all feels too overwhelming, consider turning to the professionals for help.
I think that at any point where you feel like your anxiety or worries or fear or life in general feels so heavy upon you that it is hard to enjoy your day to day, it is hard to enjoy meals, friends, to want to reach out and talk to someone if you're isolating yourself even more.
Some good tips there now. That was our Janice Allen reporting. There are still many telehealth options available to connect with a therapist virtually. Late June also recommends talking to your employers about what mental health programs might be available to you. The nationwide worker shortage is apparently giving teenagers more opportunities to find the perfect summer job. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the St. Louis Federal Reserve, unemployment among teenagers 16 to 19 years old stood at 9.6% in May of 2021. That's a level we have not seen since the early 1950s. In May of 2020, that number was just shy of 30%, according to federal jobs data. President Biden wrapping up the NATO summit this week and headed to his next major international conference to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin.
We are looking to resolve those actions which we think are inconsistent with international norm.
Still to come, a look at what we can expect from the sit-down meeting.
Hey, Angeline, a little bit cooler for a lot of us today, even though we did make it to 80 degrees in Grand Rapids. A lot of us down into the 70s. Same story for tomorrow, same story for Wednesday, but a nose of some warmth. Even borderline heat tries to come in on Thursday. There could be a disturbance associated with that Thursday into Friday. I'll have more on that. Full forecast after the break.
It's been a busy start to the week for President Joe Biden. Today, he took part in his first in-person NATO summit since taking office. And Wednesday, he'll sit down one-on-one with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Fox News correspondent Benjamin Hall has a closer look.
NATO stands together. That's how we've met every other threat in the past.
President Biden reaffirmed the United States' commitment to NATO on Monday. His comments came after a meeting with NATO countries where they addressed climate-related security challenges and the growing threat of Russia and China.
We're facing a once-in-a-century global health crisis. At the same time, the democratic values that undergird our alliance are under increasing pressure, both internally and externally. Russia and China are both seeking to drive a wedge in our transatlantic solidarity.
In a lengthy message, NATO allies called on Russia to drop its designation of the US and Czech Republic as, quote, unfriendly countries. They also committed to provide funding for the Kabul airport and troop withdrawal in Afghanistan. As for China, the alliance declared the country as a global security challenge.
Leaders agreed that we need to address such challenges together as an alliance, and that we need to engage with China to defend our security interests.
Monday's summit is one of several meetings leading up to President Biden's sit-down with Vladimir Putin on Wednesday in Geneva. The two are expected to discuss recent cyber attacks against American companies. The Russian leader dismissing allegations Russia was behind the attacks.
We know it well. We have been accused of all kinds of things, election interference, cyber attacks, and so on and so forth.
Tomorrow, President Biden will participate in the first US-EU summit since 2014. In Brussels, Benjamin Hall, Fox News.
And in other political news, part of the key memo about then Attorney General William Barr's decision not to charge President Trump with obstruction of justice will remain secret for now. Judge Amy Berman Jackson ruled that the Department of Justice does not have to release the 2019 memo sent from Barr to his top advisors. A public transparency group has been fighting for its release. Prosecutors want to keep the legal analysis of Mueller's obstruction findings secret. Jackson has agreed to allow for that during this appeals process that's currently going on.
Okay, ready to go, everybody. 10:35 on this Monday evening, settling in for the long work week ahead. Got those pop-up showers and even a couple thunder showers out there today. Again, away from the lakeshore. The county's adjacent to the lakeshore. Too much stable air coming in off of Lake Michigan. But if you do reside there and you're looking into the eastern horizon, perhaps you did notice some of these cumulonimbus clouds shooting up. Now, not to the extent that we had strong or severe storms, but certainly some heavy downpours and even reports of a pea-sized hail, a little bit less than that, even nothing to really write home about, but certainly some heavier rainfall pockets out there, but they are long gone, and I mean long gone. No clouds even to be seen at the moment. Temperatures in the 70s to around 80 degrees. Seems like the 80-degree numbers today were outliers, but did have a few of them. Muskegon to Grand Rapids, southward, Kalamazoo, and Battle Creek, the highly populated areas, did make it into the 80 to the lower 80-degree range, but the lakeshore a bit cooler, low to mid 70s. And Big Rapids off to the north. Let's not forget about you folks. 73 degrees as well this past afternoon. 56 at 7 a.m., perhaps more like 58 or so at 7 a.m. I say that because usually in this left-hand box on this particular graphic, we have the lowest temp from the overnight. But look at the sunrise at 6:03. The sun already getting up on the horizon just a bit by 7 o'clock. So perhaps we get down to 56, but beginning to bounce back even slightly by 7 o'clock. I think mid-70s at midday, and going to call it 80 degrees. I think a similar shakeout tomorrow, though. Cooler along the lakeshore due to these north-northwest winds, which are not going to be strong locally in Grand Rapids, but they will be stronger along the immediate shoreline and out over the open waters of Lake Michigan, driving some of these waves on the order of 3 to 4 to 5 feet once again into the shoreline. So you'll notice the breezes, I do believe, in the lakeshore communities in particular on the day Tuesday. Right now, current observations, low to mid to upper 60s, depending upon where you're at. The real heat is now well out to our west, and it's not going to be returning for tomorrow and Wednesday. But I do have to say, even though the overall pattern is a little bit cooler over the next, say, week to 2 weeks, there is going to be a phase here Thursday into Friday where a push of heat is going to come across the Midwest. And I think we're going to be feeling that on Thursday afternoon, as we could get well into the 80s, and then a little disturbance follows suit overnight Thursday into Friday. More on that to come. Winds right now have come way down from earlier today. Take a look at the Lake Michigan forecast. We were mentioning, even with one of our stories earlier today, I think it was Julie Dunmeyer out there covering some of the waves on Lake Michigan, and a similar type of a deal tomorrow. Beach hazard risk in that moderate zone, perhaps even high threshold, small craft advisories afternoon and evening. Waves not, outrageous here, but 3 to 4, perhaps 5 feet as northwest winds pick up at 15 to 25 right along the lakeshore. And any showers and thunder showers, folks, they have been shrinking up. The clouds that would have produced those shrinking up as well. So if you step outside, I was mentioning this on the earlier shows, by the time we got to 10, 11 o'clock tonight, you go outside, look up, there's no clouds, it's all stars. And that's indeed what we have here locally. Grand Rapids, Kalamazoo, Battle Creek, everywhere around West Michigan. Comfortable Tuesday and Wednesday. Low level humidity, highs in the upper 70s to near 80 degrees. Again, inland locales will be cooler along the lakeshore. Some showers and thunderstorms overnight Thursday into Friday morning. You take a consensus of information off these charts, and it doesn't look tremendous in terms of the potential rain amounts, but I do think we will get something rather more widespread, I would think, although this is the latest European model, and it's not particularly bullish, but maybe can squeeze out, say, up to 1/4 of an inch, perhaps a little bit more in certain locations. Now, watch this upper level chart, which I've said before. This is at the colors are at the 850 millibar level, which is 5,000 feet off the ground. Why do we show you that? Well, because that's a good level to determine what's going to happen at the surface ultimately. A good proxy level there at 5,000 feet. The green colors indicative of cooler air aloft, but this time of year you got the sunshine. You're going to get well into the 70s to near 80. Here comes that nose of heat from the west briefly Thursday and into Friday. So I think we can get well into the 80s on Thursday. A little batch of showers and thunderstorms early Friday morning. How quickly that gets out of here will dictate how warm it gets in the afternoon on Friday, because there's still a lot of warmth around. So we could get well into the 80s again Friday, then a nose of cooler air somewhat Saturday, Sunday, and into early next week. And the overall theme is going to be for cooler lobes of air to drop in out of Canada, I think, even well into next week. So no major heat waves in the offing, but I'm searching, Angeline. I like it warm around here, and eventually it's going to come back. It's just kind of a moderate brand of warmth through the next several days.
Yeah, I like the heat too, so I'm a little bit sad to see the slightly milder temperatures, but still a pretty nice forecast at that. Well, the